As you come onto your right side, let's just support the head with the arm instead of a block, because we're going to do just a little bit of rolling, and we need our neck to be able to move. You can bring your knees into a bent position, slightly in front of or mostly in front of the hips, but it doesn't have to be just perfect. And then notice how, depending on your frame, you might have a lot of contact all the way down to the hip, or you might have just a little bit of a space between your waistband and your mat if you kind of straighten your spine out. So just notice how it feels to let the right side be really heavy for a moment, and then you might feel just a little bit of a dip here on this left side. As the left hip lifts up a little bit, the right side of the waist might drop. Just notice how that pelvic position can influence the waistline region, how much space there is there. And then if potentially we were to level the pelvis and drop that left hip, the left side of the waist would get slightly longer, as would the right. And just let it be heavy, relaxed. Two more breaths. Now we'll do a few of those lateral tilts of our pelvis. As you take your left hand to that rim, you might be able to feel into the front part with your fingers and maybe the back part with your thumb. And it's not a great place for you to stop, tough. And you're just going to lift and lower the left side of your hip region. You can use your arm to help you. You can just kind of let it be along for the ride so you can feel that shifting. If you can't feel it here in the bones of your pelvis, you could try holding your hand to your waistline and kind of side crunching just a teeny tiny bit. Bringing the hip towards the ribs and then the hips away from the ribs. Let's tie the movement to this. Let's inhale to lift the left side just a little bit, or hike the left hip, or shorten the left waist, and exhale to lengthen it back out. So it's going to go quite a bit slower. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. Just one more like that. Inhale. Exhale. Try to find as neutral of a position as you can, and start to circle your left arm. This doesn't have to be real specific here, and oftentimes when we do our mobility work, I ask you to generate some internal resistance around the joint. But since it's really early for those of us that are live, let's not do that. Let's just basically move the arm through the air. And don't go so big with your range of motion. Keep it a little more conservative. So just kind of a swimming motion, a backstroke and a forward stroke. You can do every other. Do try to get a little bit of internal rotation as you take your arm behind you. And then as you bring your arm over your head or out in front of you, you're going to externally rotate. And then just pause for a second. Your bottom arm, let's drag it, your whole upper body, drag it towards your device. So towards your phone. So your right arm's coming closer to the long edge of your mat, and then your bum might still be towards the left edge of your mat. And then you're going to start to slide your arm, your left arm, open like you're pulling a bowstring. I'm just going to keep my elbow bent for now as I pull back, and then extend my elbow as I reach beyond my right fingertips. So your upper body might feel slightly asymmetrical to the lower body. And there's some give there. So there's movement for, or region for you to move around, and try not to, don't worry about stacking the ribs and the shoulders. It can keep it asymmetrical, but if it's too much, maybe decrease it by a little bit. And then we're going to add in our breathing. So you're going to inhale as you pull that left arm across you and turn your chest more open to the ceiling. And exhale to slide that left arm beyond the right. I'm letting my head lift as I reach my left arm towards my right hand. But you could, if you have the space, just turn your head with your head on the ground. I use the opportunity to strengthen my neck anytime I can, so I like to just hover it a little bit, but no pressure. Thinking of that left shoulder blade sliding and gliding as we do this kind of rowing motion with the arm. As that elbow draws back, we're squeezing the shoulder blade into the spine towards its neighbor as we rotate the ribs. And then as we reach left arm beyond the right hand and kind of slide the palms, that shoulder blade is pulling away from the spine into protraction. How about 2 more of those? And then let's meet on our backside, just to neutralize everything. And to layer in a bilateral movement for the shoulders. Keep your knees bent. Try to feel for neutral, low back, pelvis, rib cage, shoulders, all that stuff. Just kind of wiggle around until it feels good. Now reach your arms straight up to the ceiling, not over your head, but just over your shoulders. And alternate reaching one arm higher. And as you reach one arm higher and you descend that arm, keep your elbows straight so that all of the movement is occurring at the scapular thoracic joint where your shoulder blade meets your rib cage. And I like to go every other because then I can get just a little more range of motion and my head can turn just slightly away from that reaching arm. Let's do 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Lay your arms wide open like wings off to the side. Heel toe your feet to the edge of your mat, and then you're going to let the legs turn right and left. Tuffy's fairly spunky this morning. I think he slept too much yesterday. Hopefully he'll find somewhere to sit or lay down and chill instead of ramming into everything. Poor guy. I've tried all the halos, I've tried all the blind dog accessories, and he just will not comply. He's a stubborn dog. Oh, there's the light. All right, let's make our way to our left side now. Same as we did before. I'm gonna turn so you guys can still see the front side of me instead of the back. And for now, let's just get arranged so that everything's pretty neutral. Hips stacked over the ribs, head supported by that bottom arm. And relax into breath for a bit. Notice that first movement we did again. So depending on your frame, you might have a little more or a little less space underneath the left side of your waist. You don't have to really do anything with that yet. It's just more of an observation as you take a few calming breaths. And your head might not be perfectly level. You might have just a little bit of a dip in your neck. okay for now. If you let the left ribs hang into the mat, do you feel a little wrinkling section in the right side of your waist? And that's going to lead us into those lateral pelvic tilts, or what I sometimes call hip hikes. So as you level the hips out, that left side waist might get a little lighter. And as you lift the right hip, that left side might press further into the ground. We'll just do a few little tips here. And depending on how your back feels this morning, you know, you might want to keep this pretty small and conservative. Sometimes my low back doesn't appreciate this super early in the morning, but that's rare. And then let's add in the breath. Inhale to hike the hip. Exhale to try to draw it away from that right shoulder. Two more. Okay, so still letting the head rest on the left arm. Let's make some really easy soft circles with the top arm. And as you move that right arm, do try to reduce the amount of tension that you would normally create in this shoulder car. And you don't even have to worry about doing the exact movements. Like, I'm usually pretty specific in cueing those positions, but this is just an exploratory movement, not so much a activating one. Might feel better to internally rotate as you go behind, like we normally do, and then externally rotate as your arm reaches overhead. I'd say the forward movement isn't as important as that overhead reach and the backwards reach. And we'll now bring the left arm, left shoulder on the left side of the ribs a little closer to that long front edge of the mat. So the arm is nice and straight out in front of your shoulder. Your head can just lay on the side. And then we'll do these little spirals and pulls. The right arm pulls open to turn the chest open. And then the right arm's going to reach across. And the chest might turn a little bit towards the floor as you do that. You can even lift and turn your head so your nose is pointing to the floor. The breath combination I prefer here is to inhale to the pulling open. That actually might restrict your diaphragm a little bit. So you could try it the other way as well, because twists tend to make the breathing just a little more challenging. This rolling movement always makes my headphones fall out. Sorry if that made a noise. For those of you that are in the Zoom room anyway. Let's do a couple more. Is anybody's back popping and snapping, or is that just me? I don't get a lot of that, but for this movement, it's sure obvious. Let's do one more good one. And then lie on your back. Instead of windshield wipers this time, we're going to do some alternating hip internal rotations. And for this one, I think it might be better to hold a block between the knees if you have one handy, just because then you can't cheat by sweeping your leg away from you. So let's put the block so it's on its second width, not the skinniest, not the widest, but that second width. Lay your head and shoulders down to relax. And then let's let the knees stack right about above over the hips, and the shins are horizontal. And then one leg at a time, you're going to turn a thigh into the surface of the block so that your foot kind of kicks out and spins out away from the block. And you'll just alternate. Just about the same amount of pressure on that block in neutral position as you have it when you're internally rotating. So you don't have to squeeze the heck out of it. And to invite in that just a little bit of extra core challenge, try to keep your low back really not super flat, but fairly neutral. And also try to breathe your back ribs into the ground. Inhale to internally rotate, exhale, return, and vice versa. And then if your knees are getting too close to your chest, that makes it a little easier for your core. So you could even move your legs slightly away from you to make it a little bit harder to control that stability through your center and neutral spine. Let's do 5 more on each side. Last 4. Might feel your hip flexors getting a little bit of fatigue. One more round. And then to really challenge the core here, let's just hold the legs into neutral against that block and circle both of them all the way around. Trying to keep fairly neutral in that lumbar curve again, but if you want to really focus on flexion of the core, and you try to bring that block close to your chest, you can let your tailbone curl up a little bit and really imprint lumbar spine to the mat. Take those circles the other way. Squeeze the block just a little bit harder. And then plant your feet. Let's keep hold of this block, but plant your feet for bridge. Before you lift to your bridge, do some pelvic tilts. Thinking of that tucking under, imprinting low spine, and then tilting forward. The low back arches slightly. And then you'll keep the tuck under so that your low back feels longer. Let your head and shoulders relax, and then take it slow to rise, one segment at a time. Let's take 3 breaths in the bridge. Give a little extra squeeze into your block. Take your time to lower yourself down from your top to your bottom. You could lose the block and then step feet wide again. A couple of rounds of windshield wipers. And then the next time your legs are rocked to the left, so both knees pointing to the left, and that right hip is turning inward. I want you to try to prop yourself up to your forearms here, and it might be kind of tricky. Yeah, and then you're going to roll a little bit more to your left seat, come to your left forearm, and that right leg is still kind of kicking back in that pinwheel shape, and we're going to hover it up and lower it down just a few times to wake up that side bum. Keep your knee reaching behind you. The tendency is here to pull it forward, and also check in with the left side. Make sure it's not getting too lazy, hanging towards the floor. And then as you lift that right leg up, spin your knee upwards so you can plant your foot on your mat. And then you're just going to use your hand to kind of press open through this right thigh just a tiny bit as you root down through the outside edge of that left leg. Take 2 breaths. And now reset your right leg where it was to internal hip rotation so the legs look like the pinwheel. Turn the chest back open, both forearms to the ground, and then slowly descend. And you might have to rearrange your arms. Let's do that the other way. Tip your legs to the right, come more onto the right bum, find internal rotation in left hip, and then press your way up to forearms, and then just a little angling turn onto that right forearm. So there's a hint of a twist in the upper body. Press down through your right leg. Oh, this side's so hard. And then lift and lower your left leg. Last 2. Now as that left leg lifts, rotate it open so your knee points up and your foot turns flat. And just take a little stretch here. Reset left leg to where it was so your inner thigh is on the mat. This time as you turn your chest to the ceiling, instead of coming down, press all the way up to the palms. Reset your seat and take the legs to wipers both sides. And then let's meet in tabletop. However you want to get there is good. One leg's going to go back. I don't care which one. Tuck your toes. And you're going to try to make that full rotation in that ankle. Flipping onto the top of your foot, rolling to the big toe ball, then tucking into toe extension so the ball of your foot's on the mat. And the whole time that heel is just spinning around the foot. If you like to take it the opposite direction, try that. I like to keep a really straight knee here so I can really isolate my ankle. But there is going to be shifting around the hips and the shoulders probably as you rock forward to back. Switch sides. Find good stability through those shoulder blades here as you're pushing the floor away. Rotate ankle the opposite direction. Last 2. Bring both knees down so you're on your shins and onto the tops of your feet. Rise the whole body up to stack vertically over your hips. Give your wrists some love, whether that's to rotate them or to just flex and extend them. Try to keep the movement centered in that wrist rather than letting the forearm tip into rotation as well. Now let's come back to the shoulders. This is one I think we haven't done in a while. So I'm going to show you from the front. We're going to do a double arm shoulder car, this time with just a little more resistance. So we start with anatomical neutral, palms facing forward. And as we bring the arms forward to go up, we're going to cross them over so they adduct. And then as you reach up, think of turning your palms backwards. So that's rotating your shoulders externally. Now you're going to hit a point there where you can't go any further. So you have no choice now but to turn your arms inward, lower them, and go behind you. And then you'll hover both arms just off your backside. So kind of making a stack with your forearms. And then to start again, peel your arms away, straighten them. Externally rotate as they come about midway up. Reach back up again, and then crisscross to return to that neutral position. Let's do that a couple more times. External when the arms are flexed overhead. internal as the arms go behind us for extension. Bend elbows and hover the hands. The wrists want to bend there too, so see if you can keep them straight. If you notice any areas in your shoulder that feel pretty resistant or even uncomfortable, let's bypass that range of motion. So if you're healing some shoulder stuff, then we want to maybe not go so deep into this big rotation. Just keep it more conservative. Pain-free range of motion always. This will be our last one. And then you can find your tabletop again. We're going to layer in more scapular movement. So it'll be straight arm scapular push-ups. Keep your shoulders down out of your ears for this and simply try to draw them together and apart. And note that this is not our cat-cow movement, so we're trying to resist movement in the actual spine column and instead come back to isolation. You organize your breath in any way that makes sense. I tend to inhale to the squeeze together and exhale to the other, but it really doesn't matter. You don't even have to coordinate the breath with this particular movement. It's sometimes nice to do, but it's not something we have to focus too much on. Breathing naturally is great. Okay, let's have a little rest here. You can either just sit back to heels and sit up, or sit back to your heels, not on a block, and move to child's pose. Drop your eyes closed and feel into that expansive 3D breath. Equal pressure being created on that inhale on all sides, and then notice kind of that shrink wrap effect of that whole container as you exhale. We'll find our downward facing dog pose next and have a little fun shifting into that in terms of what their feet are doing. Maybe finding some movement through the pelvis as well, kind of tipping as you bend a knee. The pelvis naturally tips. See how those hamstrings are treating you today. Trying to create a little extra vertical space through your spine by taking the hips and hands in opposite directions. And then let's come up really high on the heels. Bend right knee towards the chest. Lift your heel as high as it'll go, and then start to shift your weight forward. Look towards your thumb. And then simultaneously, actually first, let's lift the right palm a little bit. And as you step your right foot forward, take away your right hand. And we're going to try that a couple times. So come back to down dog. Lift up the right palm, but keep your fingertips up, or down, I mean. Bend your right knee, pull your knee into your chest, look forward, shift forward, and as soon as your right foot gets real close to the hand, take away the hand. One more time. Shift back, down dog. Heels high, tent the palm. Bend knee. Heel squeezes in, look forward, shift forward, flex your spine, step, take away that hand, and then this time we're just going to explore this lunge. That right hand could come back down. You can use your blocks. And you don't have to just move front to back, although that feels really good. You could also take that knee into a micro circle around the foot or ankle. Noticing the hip movement there. You could layer in bending the back leg, almost like you're going to do half splits. 2 more breaths, exploring lunge. And if you don't already have your blocks, why don't you grab those? We're going to turn open to the side for a wide leg. Lift your chest and keep those blocks underneath your hand to help you with that. We're going to need to put quite a bit of work in the legs here, and think of shifting the weight just slightly forward to the balls of your feet. Try to make your back as tabletop-like or as plank-like as you can. Fly your arms out to the sides, holding your blocks. Internally rotate your shoulders and reach those blocks behind you. Squeeze your shoulder blades together. Arms out to the sides. As your arms come forward in space to reach over your head, externally rotate them and then set them down. You're going to bring your right hand closer to your left. Turn your chest open to the left, so take away the left hand. Upper body twist and wide leg. That right hip kind of wants to chase the left hip, so see if you can pull the right hip just slightly back towards the right side again, and then switch. Twist to the right. Right hand comes down just to rescue that block. Let's turn back to the front. We're going to go runner's lunge to a step up. And we're thinking deadlift position here almost with the spine. And the tendency here is to scoot the bum way back behind the heels. So perhaps today we shift forward a little bit more. So we have more weight towards the ball of our foot even though the heels are down. And then fingertips can come off the blocks to the shins, come up a little higher. Take a couple breaths here, feeling into how the breathing can fill up that 3D rib cage region. Getting in a little pressure there into the back body so it's not just front-centric breath. And then hands can come to the hips. We'll come all the way up, feel the pelvis tuck slightly to stand up. Inhale, sweep your arms nice and high. Exhale your hands to your heart. Get to where you can place all of your weight into your right foot and float your left leg back. Straight or bent for a warrior three-like shape. Basically a deadlift again, but just on one leg. Rebend right leg, hands to blocks if that helps you. Step left toes back all the way down, so you're in a lunge, and then build your down dog. In downward dog, lift your heels, turn them to the left. Let your heels pivot to the right, and then you're going to come up onto the left fingertips and shift your body weight forward to try to find a side plank hybrid. That left hand can stay down, or you can take away the left hand and open up fully to side plank. One more breath. Left hand comes back down. Pause in your downward dog. And then send your left leg into your chest. Bend your knee. Lift your right heel. Come up onto the left fingertips. Look towards your left hand. As soon as that left foot gets close to stepping, take away the left hand. So it's going to put more weight in your right shoulder. Be strong there. Try again. Step back, down dog. Lift the heels, bend the knee, lift the left palm. Kind of a quick step, but see if you can control it as you take away the left hand. And then we'll just do one more like that. Once you find that lunge, you can reconfigure it all to find your exploratory movements, whatever that is. I'm going to use my blocks. Resettle into runner's lunge, bending left knee. Step your right foot up. And then we're going to find that deadlift-like shape again. So perhaps we walk those blocks forward so that less weight shifts to the heels. And then fingers float off the block, so you put a little bit more work in the spine muscles. Find your line from tailbone to crown. Breathe into your back rib cage. And then hands to the hips. Feel your thumbs help to tip, or tuck, I should say, the pelvis to help you stand. Inhale, sweep the arms high. Exhale, hands to your heart. We're getting to where we can stand fully onto the left leg. Let the right leg shift back as we tip into that deadlift leg shape, warrior three, standing on left leg. Same line as you had on two legs. Hands to your blocks as you bend your left knee. Step back the right toes. Downward face dog. Lift your heels. Turn your toes to the right and your heels to the left. Put most of the weight of your body on your left hand and your feet. Take away the right palm and eventually maybe the right hand as you slightly draw the hips forward. You're finding that side plank hybrid. And then anytime you're ready, take away that right arm for 5, 4, 3, 2, back to your downward dog. I forgot the wide leg stuff. Let's come back to that now, but we're going to do it from standing. So walk your feet forward to your hands, and this time instead of that really strong hinge position with the long back, let's put a bend in the knees and ragdoll up, but keep the core flexing the spine. So it's not so passive. The arms are hanging passively, but the core is working to flex as we stand up. And then let's grab our blocks and turn open to the long edge of our mat again. I'm just going to do one more set of those shoulder swimmers and twists. So wide leg pose. Let's see how it feels to start this one with the arms up. It's probably going to feel quite a bit harder as we start to tip forward. So bending at your hips, keeping that tabletop in the spine. Push the blocks forward. Pause there for just a second. Take your arms out to the sides like wings. And then reach them back behind you and try to lift them as high as they'll go. Bring your arms wide again to the sides like a T. And then one more forward reach with the blocks. And then you can set them down. Keep your left hand to block, open to the right. Pull the left hip back a little bit if it tends to twist along. And then switch sides. As you come back through the middle, you can keep your blocks right where they are. Keep your hands on them for now. Turn your toes out and pivot your inner heels in a little bit. Bend your knees and start to lower the seat for a plie. Hands will come to thighs here. And then we'll add in some of those small twists in the upper body, leveraging ourselves, just a little bit of support from the arms. Well, stay low with your hips, but bring your trunk vertical. Find your goddess squat. You can do what you like with your arms. Warrior two on the right side. Side angle on the right side. Left hand's going to go behind the head, and we're going to add in some core rotations to this pose today. So let's actually try to inhale as we turn our heart towards the floor and wrap that left elbow towards the right big toe without pulling on the neck, of course, and then exhale to return open. 4 more times. Inhale, chest spins. Exhale, open. So try to keep a really light touch on those fingertips. I just caught myself weighing my arm onto my neck. So just barely keep that there as a moving landmark. 2 more times. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Bless me. Excuse me. I don't know if I've ever sneezed during class. Is that possible? Okay, come back up, wide legs. Left toes are going to turn. Let's just set up our warrior to the other side. You might be turning to your back, the back of your mat, depending on how your mat's set up. Side angle. Let's do 5 to 6 of those upper body, upper core, rib cage turns. And just notice that that left leg might tend to buckle in slightly as you do that, or your back knee might try to bend a little bit. So let's be resolute with how our foundation is performing here. And totally focus on that upper T-spine. 1 or 2 more if you like. And then rise it up. Turn your toes back out, pivot your heels back in. Find your plie squat. And then we're going to do one more round of shoulder swimmers here to finish it off. So arms are going to reach up. You're thinking of spinning those palms to the back wall behind you. Reach your arms as high as they'll go, and then start to take them wide, a little lower. Turn them in. Double hover behind your back with bent elbows. Button up the ribs and reverse that. Do the same thing all the way out and up. Let's crisscross in front as we come down. And we'll do 2 more. Trying to touch every corner of the room with your fingertips, but keeping that really good cylinder, ribs stacked over pelvis. Don't let that tailbone get away from you. Last one. And then when your arms come overhead this time, take your hands together, bring them into your chest, straighten your legs, turn your toes forward, and then just heel toe your feet the rest of the way to meet center. A couple of side bends here. Inhale high with the arms, side body stretch to your right. 2 breaths. Breathing into the left side ribs. Inhale, sweep center, same. Reaching and arcing. Inhale, 2 arms high. Exhale, arms can just float all the way down by your side because you are done. Thanks for joining me today. I'll be back in touch about tomorrow's class. If there are any requests for flow, drop me an email. It could be a pose inspiration or just a body region that you're feeling like you want to work on. If I don't see you tomorrow, have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for being here live. Take care of yourselves.